Good morning everyone, and here is the start of this morning's video. This is an M-47 Patton tank, and here we have three different patterns and we have three different ways of modelling in 1 in 72nd scale. You could do this in any scale, but I don't think you can get die casts in 1 in 35. You might be able to, but here is the Trumpeter M-46 pattern. Here is a Butlers 3D printed M-47 pattern. And here is a M-48 Diecast pattern. So these are all the Patton tanks from the Patton family. The M60 was never officially known as the Patton. It did get called the Patton, but I've stopped here because these are the official patterns. Now, Patton, of course, was one of the most famous American generals ever, certainly of World War II. He was originally a cavalry officer from World War I. He was known as being very hard charging and bullish. He did not get on well with Montgomery at all, and Eisenhower in World War II had to restrain Patton many times and trying to keep the peace between them. And really, Eisenhower was a complete legend and a political figure as commander-in-chief, and then became US president. Great respect for Eisenhower, great respect for Patton too. What Patton was able to achieve, or his staff officers rather were able to achieve, was pretty incredible. Operation Cobra being one of the successes, and the operation around Bastogne, when Patton and his staff officers, because it's staff officers that do the work, turned the Patton's army 90 degrees and moved into positions to defeat the Battle of the Bulge. So an incredible general. In World War II, we were incredibly blessed, both on the Soviet and the Allies side, the Western Allies side, with some very good staff officers and very good generals. So you got Omar Bradley, who didn't always get on with Patton, Montgomery, and then some other lesser generals. And then of course you got Stilwell in the east. So really well led, and the Soviets had Zhukov. But the key is at the staff officer level, and they had very good staff officers, and that's what enables a good army to work. So back to the tanks. The M46 Patton was a improvement of the M26 Pershing, which was underpowered. Basically had a better engine. The M47 Patton was an improvement of the M46 Patton, with a new turret and the Mark 12 stereoscopic rangefinder, which are these bubbles on the side of the tank. It had the same engine, almost the same hull, with a few refinements, but the turret was the main difference. The M48 Patton was a completely new tank. So let's leave the M48 aside there. Let's look at the Butlers printed models one, and let's talk about the strengths of all three types of modelling. So firstly, the Trumpeter kit here, the M46, is lovely in detail, but very difficult to assemble in the track department. But when you do build it, it is absolutely fantastically finely detailed with nice parts, and the towing eyes or lifting eyes have holes in them sometimes. Not always with all Trumpeter kits. The Butlers one is printed. Now printed, you lose some of the finesse and you lose some of the detail. So for example, the road wheels are single pieces. Underneath there's a big hole where the underneath should be. Whereas underneath on the Trumpeter, you get the whole detail. Underneath on the die casts, you get detail, but you get these big screw holes where the whole thing's fitted together. The M47, however, isn't really readily available in 1 in 72nd, and that's why I've gone for the printed M47. The towing eyes don't have holes. You could drill those in, that would be the easiest way. The handrails don't have the holes where you put your hands. Other than that, the detail is absolutely fine, and I've done mine in the West German scheme. The West Germans got these from about 1955 when their army was reformed, and it should have a mantlet cover here which should sag down, but I've just done it to show you it out of the box, so to speak. I've added the radio antennas to all of these just using plastic rod, and I can add the mantlet cover just out of green putty. It should really have it, it hangs down underneath, but the M-47 turret was famous for this needle nose, so I wanted to show that off, and that was a difference to the M-46. The turret originally came from the T-42 tank. It wasn't the most successful, it didn't last long in American service because the M-48, originally the petrol engine version, came along and superseded it. The downside you get on diecast is you get these marks here where you could fill them, but however this one I brought ready done off eBay, very cheap price tag, and it is lovely weathered, so I don't really want to touch it. The M48 had a completely new turret, good profile, cast turret. The guns are still 90mm, but they advanced every time. So that's one of the downsides of the diecast, is you get these gaps. Now you can fill these gaps, because you do get them on the Trumpeter, and you can fill them. And on the 3D printed, you don't get them at all, because it's one piece with the turret. So those are just some of the differences between the two. And in terms of guns and performance, every time the 90mm was upgraded, it gained extra performance. Now you could use the older shells in the newer guns, but not the newer shells in the older guns, for some reason. And the mantlets is the big change. So this has kind of a World War II style mantlet, needle mantlet, and then quite a small mantlet with a mantlet cover. And that is the Patton family. The M-47 did not last long in American service. It had a few reliability issues, mainly with the gun system, the stereoscopic rangefinder. Apparently if your eyesight was really good, it worked really well. If your eyesight wasn't great, it didn't work so good. But it was quite good at getting a first round kill, which is what you want from a tank. You want to hit your enemy first. The M48 though was far superior. Totally different design underneath, totally different drivetrain, and quickly replaced the M-47. So the Americans effectively armed NATO with the M-47. So you have lots of countries like Spain, Germany, Norway, loads of others having M-47 tanks. And that's why I've done it in the German markings, because they served for many years as a staple of NATO armament. So whilst it wasn't the most important American tank, to NATO it was. And I hope you like this. Here is the 3 patterns. The family is complete, and 3 different ways of doing things, all with their pros and cons. Take care. Goodbye.